The story begins in an old Chinese house on a pitch-black and stormy night. A group of men in black robes waited silently in line. One of them asked if anyone was there. Puddles had formed, and outside, a scruffy boy, soaked from the rain, was staring at the men in black robes. That graveyard silence of theirs was incredibly eerie. The red-eyed man studied the boy, wondering how he could be living in this abandoned martial arts academy. He called the boy a young warrior and politely asked if they could stay the night to shelter from the rain. The boy watched them closely, wondering who they were. He was quite surprised by their polite conversation. Especially since he was just a kid, he figured they probably took him for some young guard of this secluded academy. Not wanting to be rude, he returned their greetings and decided they probably weren't bad types. He said he lived in this empty academy. He'd been here for years, and told them they could stay anywhere they liked, but asked them not to use the mansion where he lived. The men thanked the young warrior for this kindness. Their leader warned everyone to stay away from the boy's mansion and told them to take shelter elsewhere. He asked if it was understood. They all said yes in unison. They scattered to find their spots. The child read the word on the robes. It said Tang. He wondered if they were from the same clan. He was dying to know what kind of people they were, but he had other things to do, so he entered his own mansion. She was busy because it was dinner time for the kids. When the child cheered up, that serious mood instantly vanished. She cheerfully called everyone to dinner. There was a large pot in the middle. She happily lifted the lid and showed the little brown cricket-like insect inside. The kid said I was almost late. "These bugs must be starving to death," he added. Then he opened another pot. Inside was a huge, majestic spider. A tarantula known as the Chinese earth tiger, native to China's Hainan region. It was a massive species that grew up to 20 centimeters. It had unique stripes resembling a black tiger. He picked up a bug with a chopstick and started feeding Blackie. As he fed him, he offered thanks for Black's presence. He said he couldn't even imagine surviving without these creatures. Black greedily devoured the beetle. The boy loved Black's reaction. This spider state had really impressed him. The tiny brat has already molted twice and grown like a beast. Ours is absolutely thrilled, of course. Once Kara's stomach was full, our guy opened a drawer. Inside lay an orange lizard with white stripes, just your typical Balayan cave gecko. It's one of those native species known for its striped body and tail. The kid told me about the hoops he jumped through to find one of these in his old life. Because he was dead broke. But now, she could find them outside at every turn. Watching animals had literally become the meaning of his life. Just as Tam was feeding the gecko, it bit him. Our guy shouting in pain and shaking his finger, but it stuck like a tick and won't let go. This event reminded him deeply of his past. Before ending up in this body, he was a streamer. And the kind with exactly 1 million subscribers. He was a professional biologist known as Asalai Fabry, specializing in venomous insects and animals. And the chaos unfolded during a live stream celebrating 1 million subscribers, showcasing the world's 10 most dangerous obstacles. The most dangerous of them, the black mamba, was known as the most aggressive, and the African trip to find it became his end. He told his viewers he didn't have the animal yet, and that finding it was quite a challenge. They decided to take a short break and planned to call back. They hyped up the viewers, saying they'd wait, but the kid was exhausted and just couldn't find it. As for the viewers, they were terrified that the black mamba could be in his house and might bite him. The snake he was searching like crazy for was actually curled up on top of the fridge. It suddenly bit him during the live stream, and that was it. He was GG. Now, back to the present, he frowned, thinking about how all his hard work went to waste. Just then, an old man in a black robe was standing in front of his villa's gate. He knocked on the door and called out to the young warrior. The boy opened the door and asked if anything was wrong. The man expressed his gratitude, invited the boy for dinner for sheltering them from the rain, and said they caught a deer. Our guy was over the moon when he heard this. He used to love meat. After all, the only meat he's ever eaten was snake and lizard. He gladly accepted the invitation and joined the others. They had lit a feast fire, and everyone gathered around to watch the deer roasting. The old man noticed the boy practically drooling at the view and noted it would take a while for the deer to be ready. Meanwhile, my uncle asked if he could fire off a few questions. Ours was a bit embarrassed for peeking, but agreed to answer. The old man asked if the kid was flying solo and how many bones he had. The kid wasn't sure if he was 14 or 15. He decided to make up a story about hitting his head as a kid and not remembering much. When asked if he hung out there alone, he said yes and explained he had no special status. He was just catching snakes and selling skins to scrape by. The old man was stunned he'd take such a risk, but the boy said he was used to it. Someone brought cooked meat so they could eat something first. An old man said the young warrior's stomach must be growling. The child thanked the old man. He said he hasn't been able to eat meat for a long time. There was genuine pleasure on his face as he bit into the meat. She thought to herself, "This must be what happiness is." The old wolves watched him with a smile. They asked the kid to eavesdrop while eating his meal. The old man said they're looking for something and asked if you've seen anything unusual around. The boss hesitated to give more details. The one with gray hair whispered to the tribal chief that it might be okay to tell him, since they owed the young warrior. The kid probably wouldn't notice anyway, and since he lives alone, he wouldn't spread the word. The tribal chief agreed with his father and began explaining that they were looking for a centipede with a blue spot on its body. The kid was floored by that. They call it the blue-spotted centipede. Since the creature was massive, they thought the boy might have run into it. Ours also asked how big it was. The chief said that if it's an adult, it could swallow someone the size of a child in one bite. The kid turned pale at the mere thought of this giant centipede. He began to seriously question the assumption that it only went back a few centuries. Maybe it was in a completely different dimension. The white-haired man comforted her, saying not to worry because they were very close to catching him. The boy wondered if they planned to catch and tame it. The elders couldn't grasp this idea of domestication, and the white-haired one burst out in amused laughter. The idea of raising a blue-spotted centipede seemed hilariously funny to them. The chief said how hilarious the young warrior was. The white-haired one clearly explained that feeding it was impossible. Turns out they were going to use that pest as medicine. Our kid's brain just fried. He thought they were local shopkeepers, but now he got paranoid, thinking there was something fishy going on. He asked for Kaya what kind of cure it could offer. The gray-haired old man is starting to show off. He said his granddaughter is dying, and only some gadget inside that centipede can save the girl. That's why they swore to find that creature. As the boy pieced it together in his head, the clan leader confirmed his suspicions. The white-haired old man's grandchild was actually the other one's daughter. According to ours, they were desperate enough to do any kind of madness to help that girl, because his condition was pretty critical. Even if he didn't believe for a second that centipedes could be medicine, he understood how far parents would go, feeling for both the girl and the poor centipede, and out of gratitude for the meal they gave, he decided to help. When I brought up the centipede, the clan leader jumped in, asking if I'd seen it. Ours said no, but added that she didn't quite know what a blue-spotted centipede was. I might have an idea where it could be. Despite dropping dead from a snake bite, Spicy Fabre was practically a professor of venomous creatures. Out of an estimated 8.7 million species, he had swallowed every single one of the roughly 20,000 known to be venomous. Centipedes were no exception, of course. With this expertise in venomous animals, Spicy Fabre was literally a walking encyclopedia. And our kid remembered the vast knowledge of his about centipedes. As if flipping through a book in his mind, he scanned all his knowledge and soon found what he was looking for. Back in reality, he blurted out that he knew where they could find that creature. The guys were stunned and couldn't wait to find out where you were. The boy asked where they had searched before. They checked north and east of the academy, mostly in the daytime, focusing more on the northern riverbank. Our guy wasn't surprised at all that they couldn't find it. "Well, of course you can't find it," she explained. The old man wondered what she meant by, "of course." They literally pressured him to tell. Centipedes, from the arthropod phylum and Colopida class, roam a wide range and, being cold-blooded, need shelter to balance their temperature and moisture. Another interesting fact is that, unlike most insects, these millipedes have leaky armor, man. There are holes in their shells and stuff. So they actually don't like slimy places. They need moisture but hate being soaking wet, yet they'll still drop dead without water. That's why it's impossible to find the blue-spotted centipede in forests or by riverbanks. The tribal elders' brains literally fried. People think these creatures just hang out in the cracks of rotten wood. The kids started to tell the story. The small ones might be scurrying around there, but we're looking for the big boss. Those giant centipedes can't survive in the forest or on the river rocks because they'll find nowhere to hide. The old men glanced at each other. They silently nodded their heads and said, "Yeah, you're right." Then they asked where this damn thing was. They say if they find him, they'll treat him like a king. The kid smirked. He pointed west and said, "Look at the Rocky Mountains in that direction. You know these centipedes. They love basking under hot rocks by day and hunting at night." A few hours later, they arrived at the Rocky Mountains. They were searching high and low. Sivri, the tribal leader, was perched atop a high rock, scanning the horizon. A man approached him and whispered that this young warrior might be terribly wrong. He decided it was finally time to call it a day. He ordered the signal arrow to be fired to gather the search team. As it took off, the exhausted men gathered around the campfire. Deep down, they still hoped that kid would be proved right. They wondered why the snake had vanished, but they also trusted the kid's intelligence. The tribal chief was silent. Finally, with a painful expression, he spoke of his daughter Huayan. Tang was seen as the most exceptional talent in the family's history. He lamented whether the heavens had forsaken him. Suddenly someone blurted out that the great chief had returned. The leader greeted him, and they all gathered around the campfire. Ulu Reese asked if even he couldn't find the scorpion. Reese confirmed that he also ended in a fiasco. Yes, he hadn't found it. He asked if Ulu Reese would share the same fate. Ulu Reese nodded in approval. Huang Yun only had 3 months left to live. He doubted they could find that snake in 10 days. A deathly silence fell over the group. The captain suggested exploring the south the next day, because they hadn't found any traces there. Ulu Reese also agreed with this idea. With not a single trace around, it finally clicked for the tribal chief. He let out a beastly laugh, while muttering that he can't believe how he missed something so obvious. He boastfully declared they were in the right place. Reese asked if he had hit Big Reese with something. The big boss said no, man, but when our guy brought it up, he said he didn't feel a presence or any trace either. The boss's head is spinning. The big boss explained the situation. The lack of tracks proves that's the very thing that was here. He interrogated the boss. Hadn't he seen anything abnormal at all? For the last 3 days. Ours also had to admit that he saw neither animal droppings nor a territorial mark. At that moment, a light bulb went off in the tribal chief's head. The big boss confirmed it, saying exactly that's the deal, bro. He said it was really strange not to find a single animal track on this huge mountain. Boss thought it might be a territorial creature. The big boss figured the other animals had either bolted or ended up as centipede snacks. He patted the chief on the shoulder and whispered that the blue-spotted centipede was definitely around here somewhere. They're really fired up about being able to save Huang Yun. The boss had this look on his face, like a father who's sad but still hopeful. Suddenly, the ground started shaking violently. The whole team woke up instantly. When cracks appeared on the ground, everything went chaotic. The area around the fire they lit began to fall apart. When I least expected it, that thing burst out of the ground. They all got blue screens while trying to figure out what the hell was going on. A leg popped out from the ground, and another one right after. They pointed at the creature in speechless terror as it emerged onto the surface. Even the big boss felt a bit weird. He was officially spooked. A few more legs popped out. It was definitely a blue-spotted centipede, and it was freaking huge. Meanwhile, the brat at the academy was grumbling, annoyed by all this noise. With all this fuss, he wondered just how massive the centipede was. Turns out he just egged me on to call you. But these seemed to move them more. The idea of a centipede big enough to swallow him in one bite blew his mind. Since he's a total poison-type Pokemon freak, he really wanted to see that thing. Meanwhile, all hell was breaking loose on the Rocky Mountain. Things finally settled down, man. They had the blue-spotted centipede all wrapped up, but of course, it wouldn't be right without a few scratches. They managed to grab the loot too. A tiny blue gem kept in a wooden box. Our folks literally started crying tears of joy. They felt relieved that they could finally rescue Wang Yunu. Reese ordered his father to fly to Sichuan first and check on the wounded warriors. The great chief was terribly confused. Our chief explained the situation as well. He said, "Pal, king is written on the throne, but kindness is carved in stone." That's their code, basically. They still had debts to fulfill. The big boss finally got it. Focusing only on Huang Yu, he realized how badly he had messed up. He also agreed it would be right to host the young warrior and give him whatever he desired. The leader ordered the wounded to be treated in the village and paid a visit to the young warrior himself. He probably thought the young warrior would wonder about the last airbenders. Meanwhile, things were messy at the academy. The kid was lovingly surrounded by 3 yellow Pokemon ripoff creatures. Now, a new trouble awaited the young warrior. Unexpectedly, she became the caretaker of 3 baby blue-spotted centipedes. They looked like tiny caterpillars. They were so sweet and cute. Especially the way they rub against your face and all. Looking at the pot, something clicked from the time he got back home. She cleaned the eggs and put them on the nightstand. When she woke up, they were all cracked, and a centipede was happily hanging out on its head. He felt their presence, but didn't expect them to crack so soon. He looked at the centipedes clinging to him and tried to gently pull them off his shoulders, but there was a problem. They couldn't let go because they saw them as their parents. Let's do a quick recap of what happened last night. Our boy was super curious about this new species of centipede. It was so big he could swallow it in one gulp. He told himself that enduring this challenge still proved what a badass he was. Even in the den of the blue-spotted centipede he discovered. Giving in to curiosity, she called him and accidentally kicked a bug. Losing his balance in anger, his torch fell, but he sighed with relief when he saw the 3 eggs he found were safe. Luckily, the rain had stopped, otherwise he might not have been able to save even one. He realized he had to move fast. He stood up to go back and clean the eggs. He tucked them firmly into his waist and promised he'd give them a proper bath. Returning to the present shortly after, he couldn't see the blue-spotted centipede, but felt relieved to have saved the remaining eggs. She asked the tiny centipedes to give her some space. He knew they wouldn't eat after the first 2 molts, so feeding them wasn't a problem yet. Even so, them clinging to her was a bit of a nuisance. Then he had an idea. Maybe if he went into the water, they'd leave him alone. With a wicked grin on his face, he decided to take a shower. The tiny centipedes probably didn't know what this meant, but one of them shivered with anticipation. A few hours later, the old stallion arrived at the academy. He approached the mansion, knocked on the door, and asked if the young warrior was inside. There was no answer. He waited, then reached for the doorknob and decided to go inside. Inside, he saw herbs, jars, and even some medicines. And that got him curious, wondering if the young warrior was a healer. He realized how rude it was to barge in like that. Later, he decided to turn back, but a rustling caught his attention. The sound was coming from one of the pots. Caving to his curiosity, he returned and opened the jar. To her surprise, she saw a spider inside. His curiosity piqued, he turned to the drawers and pulled one open. A lizard came out of it. He looked around and checked another pot. They found bugs inside. There were also some eggs and dried snakes. It was incredible. He couldn't believe the young warrior had raised him. Venomous animals and their offspring. Even tank clans known for handling toxic creatures could only extract poison, but couldn't find a way to increase eggs like this. He realized saving his daughter's life was a stroke of luck, but the real jackpot was meeting the young warrior. Just then, the young warrior appeared and greeted him. She noticed the old man's bandaged arm and expressed her concern. The old man said it was nothing serious. He started to tell the young warrior something important, but suddenly stopped. Suddenly, he felt an uncanny energy. An explosion occurred at the entrance behind the boy. Slowly, a silhouette emerged and stepped forward, revealing itself. The guy across from him looked like a one-eyed giant, with the left side of his face scorched like a grill. The old wolf instinctively pushed the kid aside and whispered, "Run." Our guy didn't know what hit him. He was just staring blankly. The monster literally roared and gave me the, "Come get some, look." The guy dove in at jet speed and swung his hand. The old man blocked the blow with his good arm, but his face contorted in pain. Yam totally clocked him. The guy literally went flying. Dust filled the air. The old man had a coughing fit and spat out blood. At that moment, he realized this punk's power was a match for his father's. The old man shouted at the brat to run again. But when the smoke cleared, the sight was shocking. The monster had grabbed our apprentice by the throat and lifted him into the air. The monster burst out laughing, while the child was choking with a cough. Monster heard that the Tang Clan dropped by the farm and talked trash. No one would have expected it, of course, from the son of 1,000 poisons. That the divine ruler would be caught alone and wounded like this. The old man snapped, "Who do you think you are, brother?" And he asked, "What do you want from this kid? What's your problem with us?" The monster was like, "What? You don't even recognize me anymore?" He acted all tough about this face and this fist. "I am the bloody dancer. That Taken, you know, that loser father of yours did this to my face." The old man's penny dropped. He finally remembered the name. So Taken Yang, who was hit by the poison palm and fell off the cliff, didn't die after all. The old man begged, "Please, just take my life." But a Yang said, "No, it's not that easy." He swore to wipe out the entire lineage of anyone from the Tang Clan. The old man was cursing him as a demon under his breath. This term was used for powerful fighters who caused a stir. The fire had no intention of letting the boy go at all. The kid's face turned pale as chalk from the lack of air. Burst out laughing and shouted, "You're dying!" Ours groaned with a weak, "Please, brother." The battery was about to run out. Suddenly, 3 pairs of wild eyes appeared. The mini centipedes darted toward the fire lever. Now, it was their turn on stage. But it's so tiny. Fierce centipedes started biting and stinging Yang everywhere. A Yang was stunned by the insect infestation and dropped the brat from his hands. Fuming with rage, he roared, "Is the 3-cent centipede going to hurt me?" But what is that? His neck suddenly turned bruised, and he started vomiting blood. He collapsed to the ground, writhing. Our apprentice just stood there, stunned and confused, watching Yang get busted so suddenly. Adam slipped away and asked the old wolf if a Yang was really a troublemaker. Of course, the old fox had seen it all. His jaw dropped. But then he smirked and realized this brat wasn't just some ordinary guest. The old wolf thought this kid definitely had to join the Tang Clan. A few days after Sorion let himself go, someone let out a sigh. Our young kid was waiting by the old wolf, putting a wet rag on his forehead. While he rested, the old geezer said thanks. Instead of saying thanks, he just said, "Tell me where your buddies are so I can check on them." But then he realized he couldn't leave this old man all alone. Plus, they couldn't even call a doctor or anything. The old wolf hyped me up, saying I'd be fine in a few days and not to push myself. The boy marveled at how the old wolf stayed so relaxed after such a heavy wound. He told the old man to stop being so carefree. While the guy's on his deathbed, the old wolf replied, "I'm a martial artist, kid, I'll be fine." Our kid had no clue. He asked if martial artists were just those types who go flying and jumping through the air. And as for launching fireballs and stuff, the old wolf chuckled and brushed it off, saying not everyone can do it, but that's more or less it. Soryong's brain is fried. This was further proof that he had officially fallen into another dimension. Otherwise, what sense would a house-sized centipede even make? The old wolf said he owed his life to this kid who saved him. Despite his condition, he introduced himself formally. His name is Tank Ace, from the Sichuan Tang Clan. Our kid finally introduced himself. His name is V. Soryong. The old wolf quipped that even though he's small and cold, Ryong means dragon. Not a bad name, he thought. Then he said he had a lot to ask you. Soryong also encouraged me to spill it out. The old wolf asked if the centipedes on Soryong were poisonous. Soryong nodded, tickling the belly of one of the centipedes. Because these are blue-spotted millipedes. When he heard this, the old wolf jumped up from where he lay, completely shocked. Soryong asked if they had tamed these or not. And he added how he achieved it, seeing other venomous creatures while waiting for the old wolf. And Soryong's brain fried thinking about whether he fed these two or not. Soryong said it's a deep subject and asked Kelson if his brain could handle the story. Kelson looked like he was saying, "No problem, let it rip." Soryong started spilling everything, beginning with the blue-spotted centipede egg. After Kelson finished speaking, he wanted to confirm that Soryong had raised that creature from an egg. Soryong nodded. Kelso couldn't fathom how he could more or less predict when it would crack. How did this brat pull off this inconceivable feat? Soryong said, "Wait a second." He reached into one of the drawers, pulled out 2 lizards, and shoved them right in Kelso's face. The first lizard had a brown body, yellow stripes, and white bands on its tail. It was just an ordinary striped lizard, you know. But then there was another one. By breeding ones with wider white tail stripes, he ended up with one that had a brown body and a solid white tail with no stripes. Kelson asked Soryong, "So you mean you produced this color yourself?" Soryong nodded, flushing with joy, and said he thought it turned out really cute. Kelson finally came to and asked Soryong if they could breed the ones with stronger venom to create an even deadlier species. He reacted by saying, "Soryong." He thought to himself that this was theoretically possible. He explained that if they know which venom is worse, it's likely this can be done. Before he could finish, Kelson burst out, "Really? Is that even possible?" Soryong was stunned by the old man's over-the-top reaction. Kelson immediately began to beg her to join his family. Soryong was dazed, and Kelson egged him on even more. He said if she joined, they promised to teach her all martial arts thoroughly and give her free access to all kinds of elixirs, medicinal herbs, and any poison her heart's desire instantly. According to Kelson, a talent like Soryong could even capture and raise the poisonous creatures of the legendary 10 Great Central Plains martial worlds. To make matters worse, Kelson added, not to brag, offering a chance to meet one of the 3 flowers of the mid-plains, his own daughter. Soryong shouted, "Wait a sec," and asked Kelson to repeat what he had just babbled. Kelson noted with amusement that Soryong's blood was boiling after all, despite his youth. He kept talking about the flowers of the Central Plains, but Soryong cut him off. He was telling her to let it go. Soryong was dying to know about the 10 legendary poisonous creatures of the Central Plains, and asked if they were as fierce as the blue-spotted centipede. And Kelson, of course, hyped it up, saying baby. He said the blue-spotted centipede wasn't bad, but it was a total amateur compared to the others. Compared to the 10 great poisonous creatures, from giant crepes to golden frogs, it was nothing. No matter what Soryong imagined, the reality was mind-blowing enough to fry even his brain. Kelson grinned, seeing Soryong so fired up. Soryong's eyes were practically glowing with excitement. He was dying of curiosity. 2 days later, a guy from the Tang Clan was stunned to hear about the arrival of Bloody El Rakasa and Tak Yang. Kelson explained that he retreated into his shell to grind skills and nearly reached his father's level. Tang Clan members realized that if the chief sent such a man to his death, he might have reached the 10,000 poisons level. They immediately showered the man with congratulations. But the chief corrected him, saying it's not that much anymore. He dropped the bombshell. This was a young warrior. The Tang Clan members, who cornered ING, were left speechless, with their jaws dropped. Someone instantly grabbed Soryong's hand. He wouldn't stop thanking him for saving the chief of the Sichuan Tang Clan. They asked if you're some old geezer who drank a rejuvenation potion. Soryong is completely confused. Seeing this confusion, the old wolf told Soryong to put on a show. The Tang Clan realized what was coming, and Soryong beat his chest to call his little buddies. As the Tang Clan members watched Soryong's clothes rustling, 3 extremely cute centipedes poked their heads out. This situation had everyone going, "Whoa!" Tiny creatures poured out, and people realized they were centipedes. Reese explained that these are blue-spotted centipedes, and these tiny monsters defeated Aang. Clan members wondered about the power of the poison. It was incredible that Soryong tamed one of them. That's exactly why the chief said they wanted to recruit this young talent into the clan. As part of their clan, but Soryong played hard to get, saying he needed some time to think. Someone from the clan told Soryong this was an opportunity not to be missed. Ree stated that they should hit the road and couldn't afford to delay any longer. Soryong, what else are we looking for, bro? He grumbled. Kelson paused for a moment and then let the cat out of the bag. That bloody-handed guy, Takayang, is training in a sinister martial art called the Toxic Claw. A total art of murky business, then. Getting to a certain level allegedly requires human blood, bone marrow, and stuff. Soryong was deeply sickened by this situation. Kelson said if Aang left behind any secret scrolls or disciples, they need to settle this once and for all. To avoid future headaches, and ensure such cruel martial arts never resurface. They also had to rescue anyone who might have been taken prisoner. If there is one, of course, the clan leader asked Soryongden if he'd help them, since he's familiar with Hainan Island's geography. Soryong wore a thoughtful expression. He weighed it in his mind. After all, joining the Tang Clan was a lifelong chore. It's like when you're an intern trying to figure out the company culture and what the boss is really like. Soryong, the clan leader, agreed to help once he recovers. They patted him on the back for making the right call. Soryong said helping means saving lives, so of course he would help. But in his mind, he planned to use this opportunity to leak more information about Situ and the Tang Clan. After all, qualified employees always size up their potential employers. Kelso needed 3 days to recover. In the town of Kenora, they visited a village near the abandoned martial arts academy to find the fire spirit's lair. They asked if anyone was missing. An old man chimed in. He noted that about 1 or 2 people go missing in the forest each year, but there's no noticeable trend. Kelson was lost in deep thought. They thanked the village headman for his help. And he humbly replied, "It is an honor for me to help." Realizing they found no solid leads, they took their leave from the Situ and Tang clan masters. As they walked through the forest, Soryong said the village didn't seem like much. It's about the village itself. When Kelson's scout found them and showed up, he explained they were nearby, but finding the top was harder than pulling teeth. Seal Young found it super weird that there was no trace at all. When he remembered what Aang said, it suddenly clicked. He asked Kelsona if she remembered what Kelson said. Kelso confessed that when he showed up, his brain glitched from the fire strike, and he barely remembers a thing. Meanwhile, Soryong reminded that his father babbled about hearing the Tang clan had arrived in Hainan. So someone snitched on him. So the case was simple. They just needed to keep an eye on where they passed by. So, the places where the Tang clan has been running wild in Hainan. Soryong suggested using Aang's looks to leak the information. The others and Soryong looked on, with their mouths wide open. They were literally amazed by this kid's intelligence. If someone had snitched after seeing Tang clan's mistress, things would have been handled as smooth as silk. They bolted instantly and ducked into an eerie-looking village. A guy from the Tang clan reported that based on rumors at Hunan Port, this village is the place they're looking for. The tribal elder noted this was where the dance people lived, silently hoping they wouldn't bother us. The villagers looked as if they had given up the ghost. The Tang clan caught a villager's attention when they called out, "Hey, is anyone there?" When the villagers saw the Tang clan, they lashed out, wondering what the hell these guys were doing here. An old man, likely the village head, walked toward them. The chief was holding a little girl's hand, 2 guards by his side, but they all looked completely wrecked. Kelson introduced himself. Soryong was watching the whole thing intently. He noticed how exhausted the boy was and how lifeless the village felt. A lightning bolt struck in his mind. He noticed the other villagers drifting along as if they were high. The village chief assured them that no one was missing and nothing unusual was happening in their village. He literally tried to brush them off. The tribal elder started talking about the gap between the houses and the population, but the village head cut him off, insisting it had nothing to do with them. Once again, they said move on out. Kelson and Soryong are out of control. Kelson whispered to Sor Young, mocking how he thought these valley people were so easygoing. As Kyongdan, there's been no sound. His eyes were fixed on the little girl again. The girl suddenly collapsed to the ground. Everyone was stunned. The village head took the girl in his arms. She started begging the major not to leave her. Her eyes welled up with tears. Since they were the only relative left, he couldn't bear to see them sick. Kelson approached the village chief. He offered to help with his limited medical knowledge. He was just trying to get permission. The village head asked if Central Plains medicine was actually this. Kelson agreed, saying he understood a bit of medicine though he wasn't a doctor, and asked if he could examine the child. The village head let me go and take a look. Then the headman told me a plague had hit the village, children were dying, and the survivors were suffering. Kelson made a flashy promise to do his best. As they carried the girl inside, the village head was filled with gratitude. He gave the guard standing idly there a piece of his mind, and ordered them to lead the doctor and his team. Everyone rushed into the house. Sor Young asked one of the Tang Clan members if the old man knew anything about medicine. The man confirmed it too. He said the Tang Clan's martial arts involved dealing with poison, so they weren't too bad at medicine either. Since martial arts start with knowing the body, some medical knowledge was mandatory. At first, Sor Young thought they were a gang of assassins who used poison. She thought that if she joined the Pill clan, learning medicine would make more sense than those terrifying poison arts. The guy also added that sometimes they catch the bad guys, inject them with toxins, and watch their reactions. Sir Yongden's facial expression was worth seeing, because he officially interpreted this as a human experiment. The more he imagined it, the more his village streets were empty. Someone sighed from inside one of the houses. Kelson explained that he transferred part of his energy to stabilize the girl's breathing. The village head thanked him many times. He was literally begging for his only grandson's life. Kelson said there's something strange with the boy's pulse, and asked if he was born with a weak heart. The village head said the girl's been sick for 6 months. Besides her grandson, others in the village had also fallen ill. They called it a mysterious disease. That's why he told them to get the hell out in the first place. Kelson said he could give a great medicine for the heart and asked the villagers to gather and try it. The village headman has basically let his emotions take over. He was calling the guy a king and all that. Sora was cutting Kelson over there. What is he up to? That night, one of the Tang Clan members was pacing around with their leader, talking about how tired he was from looking after the patients. Even the chief said okay to the guy. Pai asked how the symptoms were going. Kelson also mentioned that the symptoms are acting really strange. Laziness, puffy eyes, a slight fever, palpitations, and stuff like that. All those in serious condition had heart problems. Kelson, Sora checked to see where the road was. Pai said Sora is exhausted from helping out all day. The kids passed out. He said he left it in his room. Kelson agreed too. He said Sora was following them without knowing any martial arts. Well, of course they get tired, he said. Kelson decided to take a look at it. Pai even offered to go and get the gel, brother. They entered the room, and Sora was sleeping soundly in bed. 3 centipedes are just hanging out in the basket. Kelson took a quick look at the door, noticed something, and rushed right in. He raised his hand straight towards Soryu. His hand landed with such force that Soryu bolted awake with a nasty sting on his cheek. Kelson was staring at him. Stunned by this sudden movement, Sully instinctively stepped back and grabbed her aching cheek. He gritted his teeth, losing his temper, and lashed out at Kelson. What the hell do you think you're doing? Saying he was in pain. The old man apologized and mumbled something about there being a bug on Sora Yan's face and trying to catch it. Sora didn't really believe it, but Kelson said, "Listen, brother." Then he explained. He stopped by to check on Soilmu before bed and noticed a bug on her face. With so many toxic pests around, Kelson thought it would be too dangerous to leave it there. That's why he couldn't sit still. He showed me a solifuge, said look at how big it is and all. Sora Yan was shocked to see the bug, then it clicked. Kelsona confirmed that although patients show various symptoms, they all have heart rhythm disorders. Kelson said the exact same thing. At that moment, Sora solved the mystery of the town's illness. He showed the bug and dropped the bombshell. This kissing bug is a freak from the Radugati family. The kissing bug gets its name from biting near the eyes or lips to suck blood silently. The bastard's even sneakier than a mosquito. That's why they call them vampire or assassin bugs. The bugs themselves aren't poisonous, but their stomachs are literally crawling with harmful parasites. And when they bite, people easily catch the infection from their droppings. This leads to trypanosomiasis, also known as Chagas disease. This disease is ranked number 7 on the list of things that kill people most. Sora asked the headman if the village dogs were showing similar symptoms, like not getting clogged up easily like humans do. The village head confirmed it and asked if that bug was behind it all. Sora snapped back, "Exactly." The mayor then jumped in, asking if that meant they could save his grandson. Sora said it could be possible with the right medicine. Kelson smirked mischievously. He turned to Pai and asked for his opinion. Pai indicated he realized what this young warrior was made of. Sora and Yank noticed them passing the ball back and forth and thought, "Hope everything's all right." The men reminded her they were from the Sichuan Tang family. Sora Yankee's face was like, "What's that got to do with anything?" Kelson repeated these words in his head once wondering, "So what?" That angry but WTF look on your face was freaking hilarious. Kelson started explaining the goo thing. Apparently it's some toxic parasite created by villains in China, or some sorcery crap. These types of insects make people suffer. Or she was using them to control them like slaves. The question is officially in no way mode. Kelson agreed but added that many martial artists were killed by this goo or forced to do terrible things, like harming their own families. Or she said she was a slave to those bad guys. That's why most people have been struggling to find an antidote for this goo curse. Kelson explained that they're talking about treatments that either flush the gout out of the body or dissolve it inside. The penny was finally dropping for Sora Yankin. Kelson then asked who could make such a medicine and proudly declared that it was, of course, the great Sichuan Tang family. He told them that if they had a cure, a medicine capable of dissolving a fist-sized worm inside the body could easily handle a tiny insect as well. Then he showed the damn melting shovel. He said even a tiny amount of the medicine would be enough. Sora expressed his admiration for Yang, but deep down, he was thinking about how Grinch-like and cool this name was for an anti-parasite drug. The Tank family reassured that they could save your grandchild. Finally, the villagers, starting with the chief's grandson, slowly began to regain consciousness. A massive weight had clearly been lifted off the chef's shoulders. The warmth of the villagers was the icing on the cake. Her lively, high-spirited attitude proved that the positive rumors about her were true. Kelson admitted they would have failed miserably if Yank hadn't solved the origin of the incident. He said the real thanks should go to Sora Yang. The villagers looked at the young warrior as their hero and thanked him. Even though the cure that healed the villagers was from the Tank family, Kelson let Sora Yang take all the credit. Seeing Sora Yang receive so much gratitude warmed Kelson's heart as if he were getting it himself. Sora Yang was badly affected by this. The villagers went into celebration mode and tossed Sora Yang into the air over and over. Later, the village chief whispered something to Kelson. It reminded me of those old chats at the village entrance. Kelson asked what you were talking about. The chief was referring to the villagers with missing people. The penny dropped for Kelso, and he asked for details. In return for their kindness, the old man shared a strange story he'd heard among the village women. One was from another village and told him about a tragedy a few years ago where people just evaporated. They thought they found a clue. Kelson asked where the village was. The chief said there's a small village in the west. When they arrived, they were met by the stench of a rotting corpse. That's when they knew they were on the right track. Kelson inspected the scene. The place was full of corpses, trash, and insects. And there was a toxic mist in the air. Pai warned Sora Yang not to look at this disgusting sight. But Sora Yang had already seen everything with disgust. A guy pointed out something unusual. A golden chicken foot. It kept pecking at a snake carcass. Just kidding, it was a mysterious bird. The bird had a golden tail. Its body was a chaotic mix of purple, pink, and black. It felt almost magical. One of ours couldn't stand the bird disrespecting the dead anymore. And he grabbed a stone from the ground to throw at the animal. Kelson tried to stop him, But it was too late. Adam went crazy with rage, but Kelson put a hand on his shoulder. He warned her, saying there was something fishy about it. The bird opened its wings and released a cloud of poisonous gas into the air. Soryang watched with his mouth agape as the toxic smoke literally melted the skeletons. Someone immediately covered Soryang's mouth to protect her. Kelson covered Soryang's mouth and nose, instantly ordering everyone to bolt. And he explained that this creature is a jinya, a bird with poisonous feathers. After escaping to safety, the group gathered around Kelso. He started to describe the bird. It had a 5-foot wingspan, a sharp bronze beak, and mortuaries covering its body. When she opens her wings in anger, everything around her darkens and dies. Turns out he was literally toxic. He had a golden crown on his head. It gives her a complete royal vibe. Kelson diagnosed this as a gene oil. Soryang's eyes sparkled with excitement as he asked if it was one of the 10 great poisonous creatures. Kelson confirmed this too. Jin explained that it stands at the peak of great venomous creatures, known as the king of all poisons. Soryang is literally mesmerized. He thought to himself that every venomous insect and snake in the world seemed like pets compared to this creature. In this world, he was amazed that biochemical weapons were running so rampant. Kelson noted that it appeared he was lured here by those venomous snakes. Word is, Jinya only ate the heads of venomous snakes. Soryang asked if this was common. Kelson said it's not common at all, but very rare. So rare that it's only seen once every 100 years. Soryang was stunned. This made Kelso ask why he was so interested. Soryang asked if catching the game was possible. This question left the Tang members in shock. Kelson asked, amused, if Soryang really wanted to try and catch him. Soryang said yes, but she was worried about the poison. Kelson smiled. He understood Soryang's peculiar fascination with the 10 great poisonous creatures. If that's the case, Kelson explained there's a way. Soryang was stunned when he heard this. Kelson said that by mastering the Tang clan's poison techniques, you'll gain immunity to all poisons, including Jin Ya's. He also cleverly added that their clan's martial arts could block any poison in the world. They would never teach the clan's secrets to an outsider. Turns out even the chief couldn't break this rule. Soryang immediately got hyped and asked whether he could learn these techniques if he joins the family. And to top it off, if he gains poison immunity, Jinan was testing if he could actually stand up to his poison. Kelson hit the gas. Of course, son. He promised to teach Soryang everything if she accepts now. And said he'd polish your talents. But he warned that if Soryang takes too long to decide, he might take her out too. Under pressure, Soryang announced the decision to join the clan. She mentioned how much she yearned for Kelso's guidance. And instead of calling him old, she started calling him chief. Our sly friend Kelson just had that smug grin on his face, acting like he hadn't egged the kid on at all. Kelson said Soryanga is now a part of the family. Meanwhile, at the old location, the bloody hand and traces of Rakshasa Takan's fire appeared in a cave. There were footprints, too. They called the boss right away. And they sent him a notebook they found in the cave. Kelson flipped through the notebook and confirmed it was the secret technique of the bloody hand. Poison claw. Soryang got really freaked out because it was written in blood. Kelson decided to bolt. Soryang, Sishu asked if they went to the mother. Kelson said this was the most logical choice since they have the Blue Spots Corps and nearly 40 manuals. Soryang asked if they could stop by the academy to save his friends. Kelson accepted. Anyway, Soryang needed to pack up her things too. They set off, but when Soryang looked back, she noticed something. He pointed and said there was something over there. When they checked, they saw a bright purple feather left by Jin Yao. They all stood there, looking at him thoughtfully. Kelson took the feather and told Soryang he'd keep it as a welcome gift to the family. Soryang seemed really interested and thanked me. Kelson also said everything's fine, except for the way he's addressed. He suggested changing the title after the ceremony. Soryang wondered if this was some kind of initiation ceremony. Meanwhile, the previously departed Grand Chief of the Tang Clan, Tank Musong, finally showed up. He was dead tired but didn't even rest. Instead, he immediately asked about Huayin. The tank crew quickly pulled him inside. They said the girl is still resisting. The door opened. The man called out to Huayin instantly. The people inside were stunned when they saw him. The bride said what medicine she found, and at that moment, he cut open the blue-spotted centipede and took out that precious thing. Seeing this success, the bride started crying her eyes out, purely out of happiness. They immediately prepared to give the girl the medicine. Seeing the girl in pain, Musong's heart ached for her. They barely made it, honestly. He was grateful that the money finally came back. The bride was nagging him too, like, "Come on, man, what are you waiting for?" Musong helped his grandson gulp down the medicine. The girl was suddenly covered in blue light, like an avatar. Whoa! Musong immediately pressed his finger to check the pulse. It's like he's playing doctor. Everyone was staring intently, saying, "Open your eyes, open your eyes." They were just waiting. Meanwhile, our question machine ran out of batteries and was huffing and puffing. He'd heard the Central Plains were vast, but who knew it would be this exaggerated? They left from Hainan and took a boat to Hangzhou. Guziiras.com. Then, they said their greetings from Nanjing and passed through. After more than a month and a half of this torturous journey, they finally set foot in Sichuan. When they arrived at Situ and the Tang Clan's mansion, Pai chirped joyfully to Sor Yang. "Aka, we're here! We're at Situ and the Tang Clans!" Sor Yang stood by the door, his jaw dropping in shock. His brain literally aired out. I said, "Bro, the title deed to this entire mountain belongs to Situ and the Tang Clan. That's why they call this place Tang Clan Hill Flex." Sor Yang looked around in shock, swallowing hard. The Tang Clan members had literally poured out to greet the chief. Sor Yang was surprised by how crowded it was. He probably thought there was a rally or something. He thought to himself, "Are all these people really from Situ and the Tang Clan?" She thought to herself. A bombshell in a red dress started running towards them. She was screeching, "Daddy!" The spirit is gone. She was crying tears of joy because she saw her father again. Crocodile tears, perhaps? Meanwhile, Sor Yangen's mouth was literally watering. Kelson sighed with relief when he saw his daughter was alive. It's totally stuck. The girl held him tight and kept apologizing. Classic father-daughter drama. And Sor Yang was struck by the girl's beauty. Does something like this even exist on Earth? It was in the mode. He'd hung out with a celebrity before, but he'd never seen anyone this bright and radiant. Kelson turned to Sor Yang and said, "I need to introduce you to someone," he said. Kelson introduced his daughter Hua Yin to Sor Yang. Tell Yang the circuits are fried. A loading screen appeared in his brain. Sor Yang stammered, "Is this that thing you were talking about?" They asked. Thinking of the flower Kelson mentioned in his weeds remark, he felt like he was having a sudden internal hemorrhage. Hua Ya's cheeks turned bright red. "Kelson, Sor Yanga. That's the flower you didn't like, the one you turned your nose up at. This lady next to me." And he scored. Tell Sor Yangen's tongue is tied. When she remembered the flower talk, she was mortified. Her embarrassment hit a new level, and she cringed so hard. He realized he made the mistake of his life. He never thought he'd blow a chance with such a knockout. He felt like a total sucker. The only daughter of the Situ and Tang clans, the poison flower, Tang Huayin. But storms were raging inside this girl. She carried a hidden emotional burden. Let the drama begin. Even as a young girl, she overheard the old fogies gossiping about her skills. Not that they cared for her talent, but her beauty was legendary, enough to be one of the 3 flowers of Murim. They'd been talking about finding a suitable groom for her. One of the elders chimed in and suggested that the clan chief take a second wife. "But boss, no way," he said, and the guy was stunned. When Huayan heard this, he realized how right his parents were. He got fired up about martial arts and wanted to prove himself to those dinosaurs in the clan. He wanted to show he could contribute to the family even if he isn't the man of the house. But as they say, haste makes waste, and he messed everything up. When people get impatient, they can lose their way. That impatience let a demon in, causing his chi to go wild. Then Huyin woke up. At that moment, the big boss, his mother, and 2 others were right there by his head. There was a look of relief on his mother's face, knowing he was safe. Huya's eyes brimmed with tears as she cried and apologized to her mother. "I wanted to help the clan, but she complained that I wiped out the entire liquor supply. His grandpa called him a little rascal and asked if he was acting up because he worried him and his father. He said how he reached that 100 poison level he wanted so badly. "Stop whining and pull yourself together," he said. He was stunned when he heard the words, "Base poison." Looking at its shimmering aura, he asked his grandfather what it was. The big boss also told him that he had a story to tell. There was a mysterious young warrior who didn't just save his life. At the same time, she gave him an undergarment of 1,000 poisons, not just 100. Back to the present, boss. He's asking about the weed situation. Still no word from Yongdin. He's really upset because Kelso called his daughter a weed. Because he's totally obsessed with the story of the 10 great venomous creatures. "I need to think about this," he muttered to himself. He tried to brush the subject off. He said the boss took the joke way too far. Then he turned to the girl and said he was glad to meet her. It was also pure comedy to see the clan members grinning as they watched these two youngsters meet. Asked Yang to introduce himself. And he muttered that he knew you were sick, but was glad to see you healthy now. Hu Yang said he's pleased to meet you. Then Hu Yang introduced himself as the poisonous flower and thanked her for saving his life. He was swearing that he'd be a coward if he ever forgot this favor. Sor Yang's brain literally lagged because of the girl's beauty. Kelson from Sor Yanga asked, "What do you say to this?" Sor Yang was stunned when he heard a voice inside his head. He thought it was some kind of mental voice transmission or something. How could the poor soul have known? Kelson asked Sor Yanga if his daughter was a real beauty, and if he'd like to meet and get to know her. Soon after, Sor Yang found herself enjoying a relaxing soak in a massive bathhouse. The centipedes were sleeping soundly in a basket. Tell Yang in the battery was dead. She felt like she could faint at any moment. He looked totally messed up. Then he noticed something. He gave the centipedes a little smile. One of them woke up and literally smiled back at her. Under normal conditions, it was impossible for those centipedes to fall from there. But when he told them hot water hurts their skin and stayed in the bucket, they all piled back in as if they understood. This seemed incredibly mysterious to him. It was as if these insects understood him. Kelson also hinted that they had overreacted to their intent to kill. 2 centipedes had woken up and were now watching him. The guy teased them, saying he was embarrassed they were ogling his naked body like that. With that, those 2 centipedes hid inside the bucket. This last fire thing was so much fun. He suddenly remembered Pine saying centipedes were spiritual creatures. He made a mental note to research this spiritual creature's matter in depth. He later racked his brains over this. After what Kelso said, she just couldn't calm down. He knew he had to get out of here soon. In another mansion, the whole clan gathered around the table. The patriarch, the oldest founder of the family, was there with his wife and daughter. Kelson just blurted out that he's giving the room in the east wing to that young warrior. This room was the kind reserved for couples in traditional Chinese houses. The family elder asked if the young warrior was truly as talented as they say. The chief confirmed it. That at first they thought they had met by chance. But the main thing isn't the meeting. He said he was the boy himself. The kid had potential. He said the warrior's knowledge of venomous creatures is incredible, and that he even defeated an Yang. What's more, he had even encountered legendary spiritual creatures like the poison-feathered bird. And she had crushed the blue-spotted centipede's eggs herself. He said the leader, the oldest member of the family, had found a virtual treasure. All eyes turned to Huayan. Kelson told his daughter he wanted the young warrior as his son-in-law and asked for her thoughts. Huayan thought about what this meant for a moment. When the penny finally dropped, he went completely silent. Since he possessed 1,000 poisons, he wanted to show everyone how useful of a menace he could be for the clan. He said he's from the Tang Clan and understands his father's nonsense. But he told the man that he had to decide for himself whether the young warrior was worthy of him. Then he just vanished, leaving the vibe really tense. According to Kelson, that kid needed to watch his back. No matter how stunning his daughter was, she was just as prickly. Huayan hurried away, looking extremely annoyed. He now possessed the body of 1,000 poisons. If he gave up here, those dinosaurs would never take him seriously. He decided to scrutinize that rookie warrior, from his skills all the way to his character. Meanwhile, Soryeon was wondering what the hell to do. He knew the girl held a grudge against him. So he consulted the centipedes, who had children. He asked for advice, that's all. When Hwayin suddenly appeared, he lost his mind. The girl was literally on fire. The girl asked him for a second. He was in a hurry, so he asked for her hand. Ours reached out like a dog extending a paw to its owner. Then his face turned red. He mumbled that he didn't know why she was in such a rush, and that they needed to get to know each other more before doing things like this. She shyly hinted that everything has its turn. Hwayin asked what nonsense you're talking about. Then the penny dropped and his face turned red as a tomato. He quickly corrected himself and said that wasn't his intention. When Soryeon realized his dreams were shattered, he froze and felt devastated. A deathly silence filled the room. Hwayin sighed. He explained again, it wasn't what he thought. He just wanted to check her pulse. He guessed she misunderstood when he suddenly asked for such a thing. Soryeon was buried in shame. He sat by her, apologizing for appearing out of nowhere and being so rude. He told her she was young but looked mature for her age. So he decided to explain what was going on. He started to tell, and Soryeon listened carefully. What they heard sounded straight out of a soap opera. As the sole heir, Hwayin was constantly dealing with the intrigues of side branches. To ensure the lineage, the elders planned to find a talented groom to marry into the family. They even thought about how the Soviet Union's status could change. Hwam cut in. If I'm going to join you, let me tell you something first. I have something to confirm. No hard feelings. He said he has no intention of crossing him, even if things go south. He said he saw him as his benefactor and wanted to hang out like a guest or a blood brother. Soryeon reached out his hand. He said he got the gist, and to feel free to dig into whatever he needs to. He sized her up, grabbed her hand, and pressed his fingers against her pulse. Right then, a blue aura began to surround him.